Happy Wednesday night and welcome to Deep in the Plus. This is the show where we go deep into the Disney Plus catalog. We pull out a movie or a TV show and we talk about it at length. And tonight I have with me the best movie correspondent of all time. It's Mr. Ron Dana. How are you, sir?
Good. Now that I've got Swiskapoka stuck in my head again, I think after 20-something years it finally left, but it's back now.
Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, I mean, that's the music. That's the song. That's the earworm. I actually just went and saw that Neil Diamond musical, so I've had Cracklin' Rose in my head. So this is actually a relief to not have that one in my head. So thank you for doing this tonight. We're going to be talking about the Swiss Family Robinson, and this is one of those movies that is in that whole genre of Disney Island movies. Like there's like so much, like Treasure Island and you and I did
Castaways,
Blackbeard's
Treasure of
Ghost.
Matacumbe, Moon Spinners.
Yeah. Shipwrecked. Even the cat. Oh, wait, here's one. Why the heck have we never done this one? It's this one right here with James Garner, the Castaway Cowboy. That's the one we should have been doing right there, man. That's
I
the
don't
one.
think I ever heard of that except it was on an iTunes sale like a week ago, and I was browsing through because I have a problem with collecting, including digital collections.
I
My
think we all do.
iTunes library, if things are $5, I just buy them. Sometimes, like I have over 3,000 movies in my iTunes library at this point, and I'm like, that was when I drew the line and didn't buy, even though it was a Disney movie.
Well, it's yeah, it's a big year so anyway, my point is they do a lot of island stuff, and so I think that this is one of those where like you could start to forget which one's which, but to for this movie, a lot of people consider this to be a favorite, a classic. It's from 1960, so this year it celebrates 65 years. I went through and looked at a bunch of other movies that are celebrating anniversaries this year, and we'll do a few more reviews, but one of them that's the 75th anniversary of Cinderella. It's actually the 50th anniversary of Jaws. It's too bad we can't do that since that's not on Deep in the Plus, and of course the 40th anniversary of Back to the Future, and the
Well,
30th anniversary of Toy Story.
doesn't every movie have an anniversary every year?
Well, I mean, it's on the fives. I feel like is what we're
Yeah.
doing here. Although, like the TV series from Disney Plus and Disney Channel, Owl House is celebrating 5 years. So, yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, I feel like it's Disneyland's 70th anniversary, so we celebrate these things any chance we get. But I thought it would be neat to go back in and talk about this. And I feel like when we go and talk about older movies, you're usually the go-to guy because you have a lot of information about these movies, the Disney classics. Before we get into this one in particular, though, I find it interesting that on Disney Plus, because they bought the 20th Century Fox catalog, there's also another Swiss Family Robinson movie that's actually from 1940 that's on Disney Plus as well. So the one specifically we're talking about is the 1961. But this one, I looked at it, I was like, oh, that one's only an hour and 34 minutes, whereas the one we were doing is 2 hours and 6 minutes. I was like,
It
oh, man.
it does not need to be 2 hours and 6 minutes. Let's just say that to start
I,
off with.
I agree with you. That is definitely something. There are movies, and we've reviewed Dumbo on here, and Dumbo is one of those where it's a really short movie, and yet they pack a bunch of stuff into that movie. This one feels like it is too long. It is too long, and it's every bit of that 2 hours and 6 minutes. Sometimes on Disney Plus, as you know, they'll have the big long credits at the end, followed by every country of and who did the voices in those
Yeah.
other countries. This one starts hard with the credits and the ship in the ocean, and we're already there, and it ends hard at the very end. So it's one of those that it's the full 2 hours and 6 minutes, and you felt the same. You felt like it was way too long.
I mean, it doesn't feel that long when you're. It keeps moving. I will say that, but there's so many little like vignettes that don't move the story along that you could cut and cut down the time. I mean, it doesn't drag, but it definitely doesn't feel like, oh, it's over.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get you. Speaking of anniversaries, by the way, it's Space Mountain's 50th today. But I also noticed that you're rocking what is maybe the only piece of Swiss Family Robinson merch I might have ever seen. So you got
Uh,
the Adventureland T-shirt on.
well, it's another one I worked at for years, obviously, because it was part of the Tiki Aladdin rotation. I mean, when I
Gotcha.
first started, it was just Tiki Tree. So I really do, for years, just would close my eyes and just hear Swiskapoka. And yeah,
Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm.
it is really one of those things that, like, I think it's like Homer has a little bird in his head in that one episode where they just show what he's thinking. It's just Swiskapoka playing with an empty piano in mind when that happens.
No, that makes sense. I'm sorry for that. I worked Listen to the Land, but that song will never leave my heart. The Just Make Believe You're a Tiny Little Seed. Um, I get it. It's so funny that sometimes you're in an attraction like It's a Small World, and you think to yourself, how does the cast member not just go insane? But I feel like you just adapt to it when you're on there, and it doesn't really drive you crazy.
You don't hear it like sometimes like that became a problem like when I'm watching when I had to sit through the Tiki show to make sure nothing goes wrong or whatever. You just zone out no matter how hard you concentrate. You've seen the show literally 1,000 times and it's just playing and Iago explodes and I don't know what's going on. Like,
Yeah.
oh, the show stopped. Okay, everybody out.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about the treehouse, but I want to talk about that at the end, the attraction
Yeah.
at the Disney parks. But let's go back to the versions of this. I was looking through the different versions of this again. This one was the 1960 version of it, but they also list um, in the Wikipedia, which if it's Wikipedia, it must be true. They list Lost in Space as one of the versions of this.
They are the Robinsons.
Yeah,
Unlike the family who are not the Robinsons.
true. The Swiss Family Robinsons. But Lost in Space, the TV series, the original TV series from 1965 to 1968, is listed as a space science fiction adaptation in which the Robinsons are a family of explorers whose spacecraft goes off course. And then, of course, there was a 1998 Matt LeBlanc movie Lost in Space, and then Netflix rebooted it for a 2018 to 2021 Lost in Space. So yeah, that's listed on here. There's also a Mighty Mouse adaptation. I thought about the Meet the Robinsons, the Disney movie, but that's not the same thing because
No.
that's
There was a third Swiss Family Robinson that came up because, like, if you have like an Apple TV and you hit the button and you just say open them, like, to say the name of the title. I got
yeah
three options. So there
yeah.
was a third one, but I obviously just went to this one.
Yeah, I mean, I always feel like the Disney version is the right version, the real version, and that's my bias. That's a thing. But like whether it's
This,
Snow White or Sleeping Beauty or the Robinsons or any of those.
but I mean, as with Disney movies in particular, this one has very little resemblance to the core, is my understanding. Like, I haven't read the book, but he it was very much more Robinson Crusoe, like the travelogue of a family being stuck here, written from the perspective of a minister about piousness and family and hard work, not just an adventure story.
Okay, so let's start there then. So I mean, move on to there next. So we've talked about the versions of it, the iterations of it, but the book obviously came first. For this, it was a book written by Johann David Weiss, Wyss, and it was uh, you're right. It was written sort of more to teach family values. And so there are a lot of things like the pirates that weren't in the book, or Roberta that wasn't in the book. And in the book, there were four brothers, not
Yeah.
three. So poor Jack gets eliminated from here, and we have to deal with Francis. Which, good Lord, Francis, I got
If
issues
Francis got
for
eaten by the
days.
tiger, I was just like, yeah, whatever. If he gets eaten, like, it's his own fault at that point.
I have so many problems with our boy Francis, and I can't even with Francis. I'm just telling you that right now that that's going to be a sticking point for me as we go through all of this. But another interesting thing is that the cast is some of it is sort of Disney royalty. In the fact that you've got Tommy Kirk as Ernst Robinson, who was in a ton of different, like Shaggy Dog, and then
Yeah, I
you've
mean, he
got
played
Kevin
what's the Cochran? What's
Kevin
Francis?
Kevin Corcoran was Moochie or something like that was
They were
also in it.
brothers in that Shaggy Dog, and like,
Yeah.
so yeah, a lot of these were the staples, and then you have the dad who was more of a stage actor. He's done films, but
John Mills. Yeah, I think
yeah,
we've joked about that on the show before. Is that sometimes there were so many of these people who were in so many of these different movies, you almost felt like they went out on the lot and said, "Hey, we need you come make this movie with us," or
uh, uh,
Haley Mills or whoever.
I mean, this was still, I think, towards the end of like the contract era, where uh, like you actors would only work for one studio at a time, and they would lend between different studios. Like, oh, I really want Mae West for this. Well, I'll send you Judy Garland, for your movie, and we'll go back and forth like that kind of thing. Like, and this is kind of right. I think either just after it ended or just towards the end of it. And Disney did that too. I mean, everybody did.
Yeah. So again, Tommy Kirk, Kevin Corcoran, and then as you talked about, John Mills. John Mills is actually English, and all of the rest of the actors are American. So they were never sticklers for the accents back then. It was just it's so strange to me. Like again, throwing Haley Mills in there for her to be the only British kid, and sometimes her sister is American but she's British. It just it was silly. Nobody cared.
Yeah,
It was fine. It was a simpler time, wasn't it, Ron?
yeah. It's still though. I mean, like all Romans have English accents according to Americans. I mean,
Yes,
come on.
exactly, exactly.
Or I think in the new
Uh,
Gladiator, didn't Denzel get like having a little too much of a like Brooklyn kind of vibe
yeah,
to him? I haven't seen it
he
yet, but
he definitely got roasted for that. Yes, exactly. Um, so so again, the book is very different from this movie, which is not hugely unusual for this time in movie making. I think it was just everything was loosely based. I think nowadays, especially looking back to like Percy Jackson, people were livid that Percy Jackson didn't follow the book as closely as it could have, because I feel like movies like Harry Potter set the stage for like follow the book.
well, there's also the thing with something that's public domain versus where you have an author like kind of on your back. And we know how, and we've all seen Saving Mr. Banks, so we know how well Walt did when he had the author on his back.
Right. Exactly. That is a good point. Um, So yeah, this doesn't really necessarily follow. It's very loosely based on the book, I guess, is what we're trying to say here. Uh, but again, a lot of different iterations of this out there. Maybe someday I'll watch the 1940 version, but not anytime soon. When the movie opens up, it opens up on the ship at sea through the credits. So we get to see there is a lone ship that is going, tossing and turning in the ocean, and then it hits a rock, and there's a family trapped, and there was some kind of a pirate attack, and everyone fled except for the family who was below deck, and the family survives, and is able to then get to ground and start this kind of little mini society for themselves. But the effects of that opening scene, I think, are really good for 1960. Do you agree?
Yeah,
Disagree?
no, it looks really good. I mean, I don't know how big of a scale model they built, but it obviously like they had to have built a full like set for that part for the deck because we see them on it. But like models back then that could have still been like a 12-foot ship model for all like at that point.
Yeah. And then here's the family stuck stuck below as the water is filling the cabin. So it's not really, I don't think, explained why the family is down here by themselves. But when they finally get out, they realize the entire crew, captain and all, is gone. So the ship. I want to sing the Gilligan's Island theme, but the ship hits this rock. Then they're stranded on here, and they make their way out of it the next day, see where they are, see land, get to land, and then they start their adventure with, with trying to, find shelter. In this case, like thinking about these people and what they're stuck with, it's very interesting to me. This like. I always get on Patrick about the rules. You have to establish the rules. They've got really good rules in this, I feel like, and the fact that they can't signal for help because there are pirates who will see the signal. So they need to be somewhere. They want to be saved. They want to be, rescued, but they also can't be like blatant about it because the pirates may come back.
Yeah, there's definitely things like that, but also we have the rules of, you know, these people from a landlocked country are actually pretty good makeshift sailors to build their raft and everything, and pretty handy with a rope. I mean, those Swiss Army knives are really good when you get a good one. So.
You think everybody had one? Yeah. I mean, yeah, they're very resourceful, but also, the rule of the fact that the ship is there and they can get to it and get all of the things that they need.
Which
It is a
is a
little
rule, but
ridiculous.
they show how hard it was to get away from the ship the first time, but then they seem to be just making little shuttles back and forth to get all the animals, all the timber, and all that at different other points.
Yeah.
That was something I picked up on. I don't think I'd seen this in 20 something years before.
Yeah.
So it's been, I mean, I obviously saw it as a kid, but I don't think I've watched it as an adult.
Fire Chief 66 is in the chat and said a bit confusing opening because they pick up mid-story like you started the movie 20 minutes in. Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with that, is like you don't really know what's going on, why they're there. You see the ship and you see that it's in trouble, and you see this family and you see them down there, and through context clues and things along the way, they do sort of explain what they do sort of explain what's happening and why they're left there. When you're talking
about natural exposition about why they're
yeah.
on the boat and why they're going to New Guinea and all that.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. And I've talked about this before. I hate like the in your face exposition of like, oh, hey Ron, it's good to see you again after you went on your trip to Jamaica and came back with your wife and blah blah. Like it's just it's like too much. So yeah. I do admire that in some ways, but also to your point earlier, it's a long movie and they kind of tell a lot of stuff they don't need to as well. So there's got to be a middle ground. But to your point about like how good they are, this is them in this huge construction project, and boy howdy, if we had these folks building Disney attractions, we could get them done in a matter of weeks instead of years. They've figured out how to make this raft with the buckets to put the animals in and the people, and I think back to like the movies like Castaway, where it takes Tom Hanks like forever to figure out how to put together a raft, and these folks are like building something in what is probably the equivalent of a day or two, right?
Yeah, they say like before the ship comes loose with the tide, so it's at 12 hours. Like, I mean, obviously it doesn't come loose with the tide because it's stuck there for like half the movie, but
yeah. Well, and again, to as the father is explaining to Ernst, we can't take this, we will take that. Or explaining to Francis we can't bring all the animals, and here's why. Some of the stuff ends up coming back. Like obviously the dad's like thinking of, hey, protection. So he's thinking of, hey, let me get these guns. Whereas Ernst is like, hey, I've got the sextant. I'll figure out how to use it in case we need it. And then he's like, oh, look at this organ. It still works. Like, so they're dropping all these breadcrumbs along the way of what's going to happen later, so that when the organ shows up inside the treehouse, nobody's going, wait a minute. What where did they get an organ on a deserted island? So, Also, another one that occurred to me as I was rewatching it was that as they're in this room, there's a just happens to be this Mariners code flags, which comes in
Which
handy
does
later.
not look like it was printed in Napoleonic time. Let's be honest.
No, yeah,
Um, I that looks a little like they just like, oh, we need to explain. He knows the flag later. Oh, we need to go back and shoot this. Somebody go to this. I mean, obviously they couldn't because they were on Tobago. Just go
yeah,
to Walmart and pick up something from their section. But
yeah. Well, again, it looks like a breadcrumb they were leaving, and I don't know that they really addressed it. They just, when the pirates are attacking and they throw up the one flag, and the dad had seen that if it has the yellow flag with a big black dot on it, means that you stay clear because we all have COVID, and they throw it up to the top, and then the pirates run away. The Black Death, really. And so he says that he's read it, but they didn't refer back to this particular sign. But it looks like they're going out of their way to point out that this sign here and what it needs, why it comes back later with the flag going up.
no,
Something else. Go ahead.
no, I was just saying it was good. Yeah.
Um, Something else that ends up happening is like they've got all these animals, which is good because they need livestock and they need some explanation, and yet there seems to be every animal in the world pops up on this island, and
Uh,
Ernst tries to explain it by saying that it's some Pangea sort of a situation with some
a
earth
land
bridge,
bridge
a
from
land bridge.
Asia, but most of the animals are African. Like that's an Indian elephant, I believe, from the ears. Tigers are Asian, but ostriches, cheetahs, hyenas. I mean,
It's a regular animal
all
kingdom.
like, like there's just say like somebody was like Napoleon had sent out. He wanted a menagerie and sent the ship out. Like, there's other ways to explain around that if you really want to. If you're going in a more modern style of writing. To do that, and that's also so they don't have to keep going out to the boat. You could say they scavenged that boat. Like, there's a few ways to tweak the script if you want to in here, and I think the animals were in there for fun in the first place. I mean, but
Yeah. Well, I do definitely want to talk about the animals in a minute, but once they get to the island, there is a little bit of a first we pray situation, which again sort of leans back to the book of family values and God, and so there is a moment of that. But then there's the moment where they have this kind of like after saying religion, I don't want to say come to Jesus, but sort of a conversation between the mom and the dad about, and again, this is sort of context to say, did we do the right thing leaving Bern to then go to, get a new life in New Guinea and start, in the new colony. And they reference Napoleon, which I think is interesting to put it in, put us there as what's the time period? Well, it's during Napoleon. But as they're doing that, I'm getting a very Trade Federation, Phantom Menace, do families care, kids care about all of this exposition. Like, this is a lot of information dump to have in what is supposed to be an adventure family film.
I don't think it was that. This is one of the things I would say is that long. I think some of the like trekking through the woods back with Roberta like was more of the lengthy. I think this was fine. I mean, they don't have to say like, oh, he was fleeing this or whatever. It was a kind of a natural way to describe things, and why they were leaving was because of Napoleon, and because I mean the Swiss really, I don't remember the Swiss having too many colonies uh, as a country. It's so like trying to explain why the Swiss are out there might take a little bit more explanation.
Yeah, true. Um, but again,
And then they find the hatch and the polar bear, and it just
no, no, no. That's something different. That's something different. Um, so
made as much sense as hyenas and the elephants, but
yeah, and they have this challenge of trying to get out of of the off of the boat and they've got too much stuff and they're trying to get through, and we sort of live through this harrowing experience with them where they're trying to get their newly made raft to land, and then we go through that experience again later. Like, I feel like that we didn't need to do that twice, you know what I'm saying? Like when they go back and then they come
With
back
the
and we've got
sharks
the
and
shark
yeah.
attack. The shark attack where they're like, he's punching the sharks and they're like hitting them with sticks and shooting at them, and it's a lot, Ron, it's a lot.
This whole thing between them and building it was ever play the game Raft.
No, but I know what you're talking about.
You basically have to build a raft and kind of explore like a water world kind of thing. And there's always a shark that's by your boat. And you have to poke it with a stick. It really reminded me a lot of that.
Yeah. Fire Chief said it's like Dr. Doolittle's Island with the animals. Let me refocus though again. Like, so we've got the family unit. And let's do a grandkid roundup here. So you've got Francis is on the far left, and then you've got Dad, and then you've got Ernst, who's the middle kid, and then you've got Mom, and then you've got Fritz on the far end there. So that's the crew. Francis, from the beginning, I just want to punch him. And like you said, like, like you have the same frustration. Like you said, you just let him get eaten by the tiger. But there are so many points where they're like, no, Francis, don't do that. It's the kind of thing that you would think that you would be dealing with a toddler on. But this kid is much older, and he's just a brat. He's just a brat, and I don't know. It's just very frustrating to me the whole time, and I'm just like, I don't like this. So I mean, it's
Yeah.
just really frustrating.
I watched it right after putting my 6-year-old to bed, and it felt like I was dealing with her again watching him in the movie.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? You kind of need that. There was a TV show, 24, that was on Fox with Kiefer Sutherland, and his daughter Kim kept getting him into trouble. Well, you needed some catalyst to drive Jack into the next bit of trouble. That's Francis, and he's the catalyst. But does it always have to be just such an obnoxious thing? So the first one is like, hey, I want the dogs to come. No, the dogs can't come. Come on, dogs. Come on, dogs. Is there something wrong with Francis?
Well, and but then they have the dog save him. That's like the whole and all that. You could have the kid get into trouble, but not feel annoying. Like he could actually be doing something useful. Like obviously, like things he does end up being useful in the future. Getting the elephant to help build but like it doesn't seem that way every time. It keeps happening again and again. It just feels annoying. The dogs were useful. The elephants were useful. The tiger in the pit was useful, but he doesn't feel useful, even though it's all him.
Yeah, I agree. They seem to have the perfect balance though of the dad is the level-headed one, and the mom is the cautious one, and Ernst is the smart one, and Fritz
And then
is
you
the
have the
strong.
jock, and yeah.
So it's like they've got all of the pieces together to have the right bit of survival. So but all of the things that Francis does, from the luring the elephant in, which is just, again, seems such a bratty thing to do, is to capture this poor baby elephant when he's supposed to be with his mom and not in the woods trying to capture an elephant, then lures the tiger in, and now we've got tiger trouble. And then the bit where she doesn't want to be up in the treehouse because it's unsafe, so let's tie Francis up, and then he gets up chasing a monkey that he's not supposed to be chasing, and it's just like the kid's definitely got something going on.
And she only she won't go without a railing, but it only has to be on one side because you're only going to fall to the right.
Nice. Yes, I know exactly. Like when they go up to the top, and that's got the railing on the one side. I thought that exact same thing. As I was like, she was very adamant that there needed to be a railing on there, but it's like, but it's okay because it's on.
But the
it's on the
director thought
backside.
the other railing was going to get in the way.
Yeah.
Of the shot.
Exactly.
Where's the elephant's mother? I thought they were a very cohesive family unit as a species. I thought Disney
Not
was
sure.
very big on elephant mothers and babies trying to be reunited.
Yeah. Yeah, not sure. So the basic gist is that then once the tiger is introduced, now they're afraid to be on the ground. So that's what inspires, obviously, them to build the treehouse. I feel like it's every little kid's dream to have a treehouse, and so I feel like this is the treehouse is like the extra character in this movie. So I think it's so brilliant that that's what they end up making the attraction of is the treehouse. Even though a lot of this movie gives me Jungle Cruise vibes. The hyenas and the guys going in the boat around the island and just the elephant
Yeah.
and the tiger and all that kind of stuff. It feels very Jungle Cruisy to me. So I love the fact that it's adjacent to Jungle Cruise in the two parks that it's in, but or the two domestic parks anyway. But it felt very Jungle Cruisy to me at times. But I love the fact that the treehouse is the extra character. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and the fact that they built it as a real set on the island is amazing, and it lasted for years and years after the film until a hurricane took it down. And I think, yeah, they were just talking about in the chat, but like the tree is a saman tree. I'm horrible with botany, but that's and it's still standing. This giant tree. Uh, I had the tree house and like the kind of nice branching tree, nothing like that. But I mean, I still was yeah, as you said, it was the dream, and it was just always fun to be up there.
Yeah. No, I agree. And, nowadays, and again, I said we were talking about the treehouse attraction at the end, but nowadays it feels like it's a chore. Like, you almost like, I feel like required to go to the treehouse every certain amount of times that I'm there, but it's like, oh, it's going to be so much to walk up and then I got to walk down. It's just a lot of extra walking. But again, we'll get to that in a second. Let's do we talk at all about like the man candy? I mean, come on, all these shirtless guys walking around the entire time for this movie. What? Something for the ladies? No.
I have no comment on that. So
Okay. All right. Cool. I don't know. I think it's that's kind of how it would have had to have been, I guess, if you're on a deserted island and it's hot and you've got to do all of this manual labor. But yeah, it's one of those things that I think it was more prevalent to me when they're doing all of the like the river country stuff where they're swinging on the ropes and
yeah,
jumping in the water and all
I
that kind
thought
of
River
stuff.
Country too. I mean, I'm surprised like if they had built it next to the Poly instead of next to Fort Wilderness, I think we would have got something more like this.
I think this is why it felt river country to me is there were a lot of slides just like that one
Watching them go
that they had.
down there, my like I felt the skin on my back being ripped apart, just like in a psychosomatic reaction.
In chat, they're saying treehouse good for your step meter. Correct.
I think it
Although
was
that's
I
usually
can't.
usually not a problem for me too much. Here's the thing I noticed about this bathing scene though is that there are a lot of scenes with them doing things that look a little dangerous that maybe you wouldn't have your main cast doing in 2025, which is like the swinging from vine to vine. Looks like it's the actual actors doing that.
Yeah, probably what. I mean, depends on who you have. Like Tom Cruise would be doing it definitely,
Yeah,
and he could have been the stand-in, for
for
Francis.
Fritz,
Uh,
for Francis, because he's so short. I get it. Um,
anyway, but I think they obviously it's a real place people do go swimming and do these things. Like obviously you can't really swing from vines like that, but I mean people do those things. I think it's probably okay. Like
I don't
I mean
know,
you can
man.
watch a lot of fail videos of people slamming into things doing this, but I'm
So
guessing the way they were set up over the pool was places where they're not going to slam into the rocks on
so
the other side.
this definitely looks like the actor, and that to me, yeah, that rocks. I mean, that looks dangerous to me. I don't know. That's what I was noticing is that looked dangerous, but again, they didn't seem to have too many concerns about safety like we do in 1960 like we do in 2025, which gets me to the point about the animals, dude. the thing they did to these animals in this movie had to have been actually happening, and I can't imagine. I know there was something about like I read something about there was some electroshock involved with the zebra to make it go.
Oh,
I
we all know
just
from everything Animal Kingdom has told us, zebras are jerks in general. They're not a nice animal. People cannot really ride zebras. People cannot ride ostriches. That's why the kids were on them. Like, don't try this at home, kids.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and another thing is that really got me was when the tiger strikes and they let the dogs loose to go after the tiger. It looks like the dogs are literally attacking the tiger.
Yeah, I mean, both are trainable animals. They
I don't know,
probably
man. That
they
looks
seem to be.
very scary. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I know they probably had the kind of thing where they put like a little bit of meat tied to the neck, so it looks like the dogs are going to grab that as opposed to something else. But yes, no, you would never be able to get away with this at all.
I mean, that really looks like they're going at it, and that's not CGI, and I mean, that really
No,
looks rough. So there was that, and then as you mentioned, the things about as soon as they come across the ostrich, they decide, well, obviously we're going to ride that, or the same thing um, with the zebras. But again, all I could think of was PETA just having a field day with these folks about how badly all of these animals must have been treated.
yeah.
Land bridge or no land bridge. Um, so we we talked about
There's still one other animal scene I wanted to talk. It was the python attack.
okay.
Did pretty much they George Lucas just clipped that straight for the trash compactor scene?
Yes, correct.
Okay, yeah, that wasn't me just thinking that is exactly that.
Yeah, no, that's exactly like going under the water and looking for stuff, and he can't
The
find
way
the
it's
knife,
wrapped
and
around him.
yeah, yeah, it's really, and then he pulls him under the water. Yeah, it is definitely the trash compactor scene for sure, 100%. Um, but also the snake actually looks again real. Like, I mean, it doesn't look like he's like uh, dealing with a rubber snake, especially when the head comes out of the water. I think it's right there. That looks like that snake is real.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably not. I mean, I people can handle those things regularly. Like I don't know. I don't think if it's fed, it's probably okay. Don't take my advice on it, but they're not abusing that one at least. Like they're not.
Ron Deanna and WDWNT do not condone the use of snake wrestling. Um,
You can go to Gatorland down the street for that.
yeah. What fire chief and I believe his fire chief in chat was saying it was crazy the part two the where they're trying to get the animals off the ship and they've got like barrels on them and they're like bringing them all over that like they're just basically submerging all of these animals and having them
That
float and
feels like a
swim.
scene from like some. That feels like Jungle Cruise and Pirates right there. Like to me more than anything.
Yeah, it doesn't look safe. And then also they're basically at that point chum for the sharks if that was a real thing at that time. Although it seems like the sharks there's like it almost seems like there's dozens of them and then we never see sharks again as an issue.
Yeah, that's a scene to be cut. That really is like, and it's not well. It's like they just stock footage. They've probably filmed for something else. Throw in a shark. Like they don't even have a rubber shark to fight. Like it just always like stab at the water, shoot the gun, don't see anything,
Yep.
and then find a turtle that could pull all of that miraculously.
They needed some bat shark repellent is what they needed. Um
And then they turn that turtle that drags them into a sink.
that's the other Yes, a genuine imported sink made from tortoiseshell. But that's the other thing too, is that these three men are trying their best to move this entire raft that's overflowing with stuff, trailing with animals, and it's taking them forever. And they this one lone, I don't know the science behind how strong a turtle is, but this one lone turtle, they throw a rope around him and then do this number and just let him pull. That can't be. I don't know. That's one of those things where the rules kind of get to me a little bit. Let's change gears and talk about it again. Something that wasn't in the original book was the pirates. What nationality are these pirates?
Uh, I'm not going to hazard a guess. Uh, let's just
That's fair.
say
That's fair.
let's just say the U.S. has probably bombed their country at some point.
It's just one of those things, though, when the pirates are there and like they're yelling at this captain and his boy, which I want to talk about that in a second too. When they're yelling at him, it doesn't sound like a language that they're using. It
And the
sounds,
subtitles said native language, not Chinese, not Thai, not Korean.
yeah,
Just said native language.
yeah. Well, and Ronald said Asian slash Indian Malaysian question mark. I mean, I was thinking, like, are we talking Mongolian? Is it, or like, what is it? I don't know. There didn't seem to be any specific language that they were speaking, though. It seems like it was just they told the actor just grunt and scream a lot in nonsense, because it didn't sound like an actual language.
Yeah, I definitely was just, I would say, pan Southeast Asian. Let's just
Yeah.
leave it at that.
Yeah, it was interesting. And then this is when Ernst and Fritz are going to the other side of the island. They're trying to map the island by making a loop around it in this, again, very well built canoe that they've built. But as they're doing that, they see these pirates and they see these two prisoners that are on land. And so it's this captain, which for a second I thought was the captain from their ship, but it's not. And then the captain's quote unquote boy. Does anybody fall for this immediately, that this is a boy? Like, they did horrible. Like, I fall for it in Mulan or whatever that Amanda Bynes movie was, but I don't fall for it here.
I mean, maybe you're not looking for it because there was still the superstition. If this was a merchant ship and not a colony ship, like sailors don't like women on board, kind of
Yeah.
thing. Maybe that's why it's easier to get away with because they're not expecting it from that kind of ship. But yeah, it's fairly obvious. And they had time to cut her hair at some point, they said too. Like, oh, pirates are attacking. You guys fend them off. We're going to go to the salon.
I also thought it was interesting, the strategy of, we're going to take our two prisoners and we're going to put them all the way over next to the woods, and then we're going to have our conversation way over here, and then we're going to come see them, and then we're going to go back again, which, I mean, obviously
Very
sets it up
lightly
perfectly.
tied up because they didn't have a knife to even cut them loose. Like, they're like, obviously it very looks very clear that they could knock the stick out by banging against the rock, and it would have just come right out from behind them.
It did seem that way. What was the little ritual that the pirates were doing with the rock? Like, it
I
looked like,
think they were flipping because there were two ships there at that point, right? There were two pirate ships. Maybe
yes,
it was who was going to get control, and they flip it, and one of the ships seems to gravitate towards the rock, like they won, like flipping a coin, and then the other crew just kills them. Like that was how I read that scene.
yeah, interesting. Okay, well, I did think that was like a very thin, and like we mentioned before, it wasn't in the original book, but I think the pirate thing in general seemed out of control. Like, there didn't seem to be a ton of them here, even though there were two ships, and then they kill each other here. And then when they come back, there's a ton of them, and then the Robinsons kill a bunch of them, and then there's still a ton of them. It's just like, where are you getting this many pirates?
And why was it so worth it to go after the boy?
Right,
Like they've already
exactly.
ransomed the person. The like, okay, they're giving resistance. Forget it. We're just gonna. There's nothing here for us. Pirates want money. They don't. They're not colonizing the island.
Yeah.
Like it would have made more sense if they knew she was a girl to come back to come for her, rather than just still coming back for the boy.
Yeah. It was a very interesting too Clark Kent Superman moment where they're in this little bit of a fight and Fritz pulls the hat off and immediately is like, "Oh, you're a girl." Like that's what, and plus he's not really doing good at fighting any why he purposely pulled it off, but as soon as he pulled the hat off immediately it's like, "Oh, you're a girl." I don't know. That was a little bit problematic to me. That whole way that all of that went down. And then again, to your point about like their trip back didn't need to seem to be as long as it was because they weren't doing anything to further the story along. She's just complaining that she wants to go backwards. There's the snake scene that takes, I don't know, it's seemingly 30 minutes, but it's probably only like 4 minutes, but still.
And also the this is gonna like the way they look at the way they were coming around the island was in a clockwise way, and then they said, "Well, we're going back. We need to head this way," and they point as the shore would be clockwise again. So had they gone mostly around the island at that point, and did they know that? Like they were kept going the way their boat had been going in the first place.
Yeah. No, yeah, I do think that was a little bit strange. Um,
And I know I get
so
nitpicky on this stuff, but I did at one point,
we go deep, man. We
have a
go deep in the
job.
plus.
Well, I did
Yep.
have a job reading scripts and advising on continuity and legal issues and stuff. So it's a habit that's hard to get out of when you see things like that. I hate
Yeah.
being when I'm nitpicky like that, but it's trained.
Yeah. There was a no, I totally get it. There was a scene in Star Trek that reminds me of this scene where they're on some rock island, where Kirk is like he gets out of his shirt and they made fun of it in Galaxy Quest. But this seems like a very similar scene. But again, what are they doing to these poor
Uh,
animals? I mean, it's just tough.
yeah, the zebra alone being stuck in that, and then they are really throwing. I mean, it could have been foam for all we know, but
Yeah,
let's see, like, why are the hyenas and the leopard like being friends there?
yeah.
Which are both main like I don't know.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch, it's Christmas. They're singing "Oh Christmas Tree" with the organ that they rescued from the ship, and Francis is whining because he wants to open up all the gifts, which again makes me want to just punch Francis in the face. Um, so he's there and like, oh, I want to open up all these gifts. They're for my brothers who may be dead. It just seemed ridiculous.
Yeah, I the whole like there's wrapped gifts. They know what day it is. Like I know it's like you're
Right.
probably counting from when you crash, but like that's some
Yeah.
really good keeping track of things at this
Well,
point.
and we reviewed a Walt Disney at Christmas or Christmas with Walt Disney, which is also on Disney Plus. And when we reviewed it, they used these scenes from the Christmas episode or the Christmas section in the Christmas with Walt Disney, and like a lot of them, like a lot of these scenes with them singing and the present, like a long bit of this. So I had seen this recently when we reviewed that earlier on Deep in the Plus, um, which just seemed random. You've got so much Christmas stuff in Disney history. This one doesn't feel Christmassy, really, because and to put this in at random when you don't understand, if you didn't understand the movie and where in the movie this fit, didn't seem to make any sense. But I guess they had the footage and figured they'd use it.
But I mean, even after it came out, like Walt was very good at promoting what he wanted to promote. Was it around because this movie was released at Christmas? It was considered a Christmas release for them. So
Gotcha.
maybe it was that same. What year was that? Uh,
The Christmas with Walt Disney. I'd have to go back and look, but
yeah.
you're probably right. It was probably around the same time. Um,
Or then they were promoting the treehouse in the parks 2 years later. So it was,
yeah,
Walt wants to promote what he wants to promote.
yeah. There are a couple scenes when they're getting so they get Roberta. They get her back to the village, or their treehouse. Mom has wanted the boys to have female companionship so that they could have a family, and then here comes this woman. This. Go ahead. Go ahead. You want to say
No,
something?
no, that was a very awkward scene where a lot of euphemisms, like they'll never know a family, like
Yeah. So she gets her wish, and they somehow randomly the island provides them with a female companion. But now there's a fight between Fritz and Ernst for her affection, and she seems to know that they are fighting for her affection and playing them against each other a little bit, which also then puts her in my second position of people I'm mad at. First is always going to be Francis, 100%, and then it's Roberta, and then probably after that it would be probably a toss up between Ernst and Fritz, depending on how the relationship fight was going. But it just seemed like an unnecessary distraction from the rest of the story, and again, wasn't part
yeah,
of the original book.
I know it was. Yeah, it was there. Or at least that doesn't seem to go on all that long. Like I think the whole courting thing was just as long as they were probably reminiscing about walking down Swiss streets and all that. Like it felt like it went very much like, okay, just enough of this drama, but we're also doing the same thing where we're building up because we know the pirates are going to be back and the most useless trap bridge of all time. Um, like they're doing it as part of something else. It wasn't like the story stopped and this was the focus. It just was going along with other things.
Well, I disagree. I think that it took way too long. And you're right, it was while other things were happening, but it was the focus of whatever was happening while the other stuff was happening in the background. Because one of the things they don't tell you is how did they get all these huge, heavy logs up the hill so quickly and get them set up this way? And then after that, he continually walks underneath it. And I'm thinking, that's not smart. You're going to get trampled there.
I mean, they had the crane left over from moving the pipe organ up into a tree, so
Sure.
or they probably abused that poor elephant.
Yeah, I know, right? Poor Rocky. But then then he takes down the branch that's holding it up, and then he's still sitting underneath it, and it's just like, what are you doing, dude? It just seemed dangerous. All of it seems super dangerous. And then when Ernst walks in, he walks underneath it as well, and then they leave, of course, public enemy number one, Francis, behind to light the coconut bombs, and it rolls down into the gunpowder, and then we're almost halfway through the fuse, and then when he gets it again and he takes it to the top of the hill to throw it, all of a sudden it has all its fuse left again, pretty much. So, and he's just like taking it back and forth between hands. He's not in a hurry at all, and then it immediately
Some
explodes. I just he's the worst.
Some
He's
days it's
just the
just
worst.
really hard to get rid of a bomb.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so here's some more of the courting thing. And then, we find out that she's trying to get Fritz to show her how to shoot a gun, but then she shows that she actually knows how to shoot a gun and she was just playing him the whole time. And then there's the whole Francis makes the pit because he needs tigers to fill the pit, which then kind of works out. But they have all these things
Okay,
that
I was
seem.
reading. Apparently, this was one of those things. Walt was insistent on the tiger. The
Okay.
tiger had to be in there, and putting a 8, 10-year-old boy in as the kind of proxy for Walt makes a lot of sense when he was doing so. I want this. Okay, how are we going to do that? And apparently, the whole thing with like, we'll put the tiger in the pit. Walt, they could jump out of pits. No, they can't. Walt, the tiger jumped out of the pit.
Well, give Walt Disney whatever he wants. That's what I always say. When they make up their little holiday for all of them to play around, they that's when really the animal abuse gets into full effect. With them all riding the animals, they're riding the ostrich and and the zebra and the dogs are like, and they're just having a good, and the monkeys on the back of the dog. I mean, there's just it's crazy. It's pandemonium is what it is.
Yeah, and you know what? The pirates might have been right to invade.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Hey, Ron, I want to ask you a couple trivia questions here. So, thank you everybody for watching so far. Appreciate it. We're going to wrap up here in a little bit because I know we're running a little bit long, but I do want to thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, give us a thumbs up. A couple easy trivia questions. They're really more name based, and I don't know if you will know them or not, but I figured I would throw them at you. In the beginning, they say that the captain has abandoned them on the ship, and they say the captain's name. Do you remember the captain's name?
Uh, Johann Schmidt. I don't know.
Wilhelm. He's actually listed in like Disney Wikipedias as like the Captain Wilhelm, and we never see him. I wondered for a minute if Granddad on Roberta's grandfather was Captain Wilhelm, but that's not him. But yeah, Captain Wilhelm was there. This one should be easy for you. What are the dogs' names?
Uh, I don't remember.
Oh,
There's a T one I know, and I can't remember the other.
yep, nailed it. It was Duke and
It was like
Turk.
Thol. Oh yeah, okay. Duke and Turk. Okay.
But the funny part is like I had to really listen to the Turk part because they would yell Duke's name first. Duke's name was yelled a lot in that one. So that was one that I was trying to keep track of. The final one, and again, you may not know this. The ship that sunk, their ship. What was the name of their ship? The one that they ended up blowing up.
I don't know. I know the model was based off the Endeavor, but that's all I can. Because I was reading some facts about the movie, but
Yeah.
I don't remember the name of the ship.
The name of the ship was the Titus. Titus. I don't know what the significance is of that, but there's a thing. Um, just little trivia facts. You were saying you were reading up on some of that. The anaconda that they used was pregnant during filming. That's interesting.
Oh,
Out of all the films that Tommy Kirk did for Disney, this one was one of his favorites, even though he kept being homesick during the shooting and was almost considered quitting at one point because he was so homesick. Duke
yeah, they
of
were on
the
the
Duke.
island for a long time.
Yeah. Well, and there was a scene where the two of them, Ernst and Fritz, are going around, and Fritz has Ernst has his feet in the water, and I thought to myself, I would just be like, I would want to be away from water at this point, as much water as they made you be in during this trip between the anaconda fight and like their boat capsizing and the original is just a lot of water around.
Like
Duke
Kate Winslet said that, I think, right?
about
She
Titanic.
didn't want to ever. Yeah.
Yeah. Duke was also the same dog that appeared in The Ugly Dachshund.
Oh, that's not
So
a dachshund.
and this movie made $40 million, which in today's money is $367 million, making it one of the most successful family movies ever made, which is
Yeah.
crazy to me that that's a thing, but it's a thing. Um, okay, I appreciate you playing along with that. So basically, the pirates come and they you mentioned this earlier. They want the boy back, and they follow the Robinsons into every trap that they've set, seemingly losing hundreds of men between the tiger pit, the other pits, the rolling logs, the
And
gunfire,
the guys
the coconuts.
vertically out of the pit. Like, I'm watching this, I'm like, okay, Disney doesn't want to show people dying. And then seconds later, they're just all getting shot. The log, like, oh, you couldn't have the tiger kill them off screen, but you're going to show them getting shot, trampled, thrown off cliffs. I didn't understand it.
Yeah. No, it was definitely a thing, but like you said, or look, you actually had a problem with the bridge.
Right. Like, they built this bridge to get to go across it, but it was a river you could just walk across anyway, and they pull it down and they fall 5-6 feet, like, into
Yeah.
water. Not even that. Like, what was this supposed to do? Like half of them aren't even going across the bridge. Like what was the point of that? Other than Walt was going, let's just do this in case we want to put it in the park.
Oh, in case you wanted to do the Tom Sawyer's Island. Yeah,
Yeah, I was actually thinking of like the Animal Kingdom bridge that used to shake a little bit more than it does.
oh yeah, the one on the
The
Kilimanjaro Safari.
Safari.
Yeah, but I mean, there's like a whole arrow attack here. Like, I mean, again, you've taken them out with the bridge. You shoot them with arrows. You roll the logs on them. You throw them in pits, and then there's still hundreds of them.
And then you decide to start using grenades when if you're funneling them across a bridge, why not put the explosives under the bridge when they're all in one place to funnel to?
Yeah. But what also makes me laugh about this whole thing is, again, thinking back to the pirates were not part of the original book, and yet this is the climax of this movie is the pirate attack. This is the thing that we've been counting down to the entire time, all the time using to all the prep to put together the booby traps, not lighting the fire, hiding all of this other stuff, and it's the climax of the movie.
Yeah. And then the Deus Machina to just get them out of it.
Yeah. There's one scene where they push. By the way, these guys shoot like stormtroopers because none of the family gets taken out, even though everybody's being all sloppy about being out in the open.
I mean, those guns probably did shoot like stormtroopers, but
Yeah, but the Robinsons are able to take people out, but not the others. But there's this one scene where where Fritz knocks this guy off the cliff, and it feels like there's like you can see the dummy falling to the ground almost here. So this guy falls in here, and then they drop a dummy out.
Is there a Wilhelm screen?
Yeah, sort of. No, it wasn't quite Wilhelm scream, but there was definitely a scream. But I just love the fact, like that practical effect of the stuntman falls into the bush, and then they drop
the cowboy switch or whatever it's called. I think.
Yeah, and then they drop the guy after that because I was like, wait a minute, that looked like a real guy, and then all of a sudden it doesn't look like a real guy. Let's take a look one more time. So here it is. Real guy falling, stops here, then drops the body, and you can see once it hits.
I mean, it's not bad.
Yeah.
I mean, lingering on it on the ground makes it unbelievable, but
yeah. Monorail 425 said nobody hit anyone with muskets. Yeah, a lot of these folks, like the Robinsons are knocking people off of the mountain, but the other guys are not doing anything. Also, there's this one scene with this pirate who's sneaking up on Mom, and he's like, "Ooh, I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna." Like he should have swung that sword a long time ago. It's a little, the fighting's a little bit silly, and then he takes 3 steps back so he can fall off of the thing. So as great as a movie as some of the things are in this, there are still some silly things, I guess is what I'm trying to say about this. The fight scene at the end seems a little silly. The main pirate wants to, set up this final trap where he's going to wave the white flag, and then he sends the other guys up around the side so that, like you said, they've invested all of these resources to get the boy. And then when they find out that their boat is being blown up by some other ship, they send everybody back to the ship. That was weird.
Yeah. It didn't make and how crowded that pirate ship must have been with that amount of people on it.
Yeah.
It was definitely a product of its time. It really feels very clearly like a 60s movie.
Well,
50s even.
Just the treehouse production alone, I think, was really super well done. As a set, they bring back grandfather comes back to rescue Roberta. Ernst is in for the idea of going to London to be in school, and mom and dad decide they would like to stay on the island, and they're like, well, this is going to be a colony now, and we'll be looking for a governor. So it's like there's this like wrap up happy ending that happens within like 2 minutes after
Yeah.
that pirate like scene took 20 minutes. So, um,
Yeah,
but
and
yeah, I mean,
it's
it
very
works out
weird
for
that you
everybody.
have the family split up at the end. That doesn't feel like the way these things normally go. Like, you like, oh, everybody's staying, or we're gonna leave. Oh no, just you. Oh, okay, bye. Like that's not how these things work out. And the parents are kind of like, oh, we like this nice isolated island. I'm like, well, it's gonna be a colony now, right? You're not gonna be alone here anymore.
Right. I don't know. It again, it's a classic. It is a classic movie. But there are definitely some things that hold up, and there are definitely some things that I don't. So I do want to get to final thoughts from you, unless there's anything else you wanted to talk about. Oh wait, before we do that, let's talk about the treehouse itself, the attraction.
Yeah.
We have the attraction at Magic Kingdom, which is the Swiss Family Robinson Treehouse. It was my father-in-law's favorite attraction. It's one of those that I think that there's more nostalgia around it than fun,
It's
honestly.
a good, it's a good, just kind of distraction thing. And Disney World doesn't have those. The other parks do. Like the Magic Kingdom doesn't have these little like things. I mean, Land obviously has less and less of them over the years, but like you've been to Paris, right?
Yes.
Like there's all those little walkthroughs and things that make it feel like a place, and I think the treehouse is one of those. And people say, "Oh, it's a waste of space," but it's not a huge footprint, obviously. Um, like it's bordered behind by like service roads and jungle cruise, like back house stuff. So there's not much you could like put there to in its place. And you know what? When I was there, it was still 22, 23 years ago. Like it's still got it's like 1,000 an hour. You know, during busy times of year, we would have to open that extended queue on a regular basis if it was a
Yeah.
busy day. And, you know, there are some good places up there to watch fireworks.
But it's one of these things where if you got rid of it, there's not anything else you could put that would be as useful in that footprint. That
No, it's
said,
got a decent capacity.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, I mean, like, it's got the footprint of a spinner, but twice the capacity.
right. So and as somebody mentioned earlier, you can get your steps in. The one in California was temporarily rethemed, and I say temporarily, it was like a decade or two, as Tarzan's Treehouse, which I thought was interesting because I feel like there are not too many kids who get the reference of the Swiss Family Robinson. So
And there
it
was
was,
definitely
it,
discussion when I was working there that was going to happen to us because it was about that. It was sometime during my tenure when that did get switched, if I remember. And it was one of those things we're discussing, but it's like, well, we just we did the magic carpets. We don't need a draw here. Um, Hi, Pepper. Uh, and yeah, it was definitely at some point discussed that we thought we were going to get it, but it just never did. And it was one of those things to work. It was you literally were just a greeter, so I could be there. Like at night, nobody was coming up, so I would sit there for like 20 minutes by myself, and then somebody would come by and send their kids up, and I'd go talk to them while they sit. I bet you get off of there. Um,
the cats. David Long's in chat said bad kitty. Um, yeah. So
not going to get it over this time.
and Ronald said, "I like all the details in the treehouse." Yeah, there are a lot of neat details in the treehouse, and I did like the Tarzan treehouse, and I also like the fact that sometimes it can be different in Disneyland and Disney World. I love that things are sometimes different. I love we have Tower of Terror at Disney World, and at Disneyland we have the Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. I like it when
Yeah.
there can be different versions so that you are actually experiencing something completely different as opposed to two cloned exact replicas of Batu. Um,
And I think I went through the Tarzan version once, maybe twice.
gotcha.
Um, in the years I was out there, and then I have not been through since the redo.
Yeah. So the new one is the Adventureland Treehouse inspired by the Swiss Family Robinson is how that works now. It's not the Swiss Family Robinson Treehouse redone under new management, nothing like that. It's the Adventureland Treehouse inspired by the Swiss Family Robinson, and it's very similar to the way it was originally. A lot of it is returned. The ostrich that comes up in the queue is brilliant. I love seeing that. But yeah, it's returned. They got rid of the entrance used to be in the middle of the walkway, which was super inefficient. And I'm betting theming wise was great for a smaller capacity park back like it was back in the day. But now they needed more
Well,
capacity.
I
They
think
took the
in 1960 that was like almost a dead end or just a turnaround because what really because there wasn't you didn't have
oh
New
because they
Orleans Square
added
there.
right they added New Orleans Square. That's a good point. So yeah, I mean, I like that the attraction exists, but I do think it probably is more. It doesn't mean anything from a thematic standpoint to kids anymore. I doubt parents are sharing this movie, and maybe they are.
Paris is
And
still my favorite of all of them though because it's part of that complex with like Skull Rock and all that. It's a great. It's like Tom Sawyer. It's part of like Tom Sawyer Island there, kind of like
yeah,
their version of Tom Sawyer Island. That's like a playground for kids. That makes the most sense to me the way that's placed.
yeah. Um, Monorail 425 said the weird thing is that if there's a line for the treehouse, it isn't worth going because it makes you feel rushed and you can't take in all the details. That's a good point. I think that, it can sort of be like a little hidden gem, which always worries me when there's a hidden gem at Disney, which means somebody's got their eye on, well, what could this be instead? But it does seem like with the recommitment of the one in Disneyland that they seem like they want to stick with these things as they are, and they're solid. Both of the tree houses are very
Yeah,
solid. It's not like it's a safety hazard or anything. So
I,
I hope they
and
stay forever.
there's not much you could do with it, and it would just the demolition would cost a ton alone to take it out to like put nothing there. You wouldn't want to do that. Um, and it's something that is just even if kids don't know the movie, it has that draw of adventure and something exotic and out of the ordinary but reachable.
Yep. No, I agree. Okay, so before we do a final wrap up, I want to say thank you to everybody who's watching tonight. We appreciate you. Thank you for sharing your Wednesday night with us. Also, give a shout out to our WIGS members. We love our WIGS, the WDWNT Interglobe Society. Also, again, happy 50th anniversary to Space Mountain. Don't forget that there's an event happening down at the WDWNT studios this weekend to celebrate all things Space Mountain. As far as we go, we have Park Center every Sunday night at 9 p.m. So hopefully you'll join us this Sunday night for another Park Center. And then every Wednesday night we do Deep in the Plus. The schedule for coming up is we did Inside Out 2 last week. We've got Swiss Family Robinson tonight. And Saving Mr. Banks, you mentioned that one out loud, Ron. Saving Mr. Banks. We're going to be doing that one. Shannon and I will be talking about that on January 22nd, next Wednesday night. So if you can, join us next Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Join us Sunday nights at 9 p.m. for Park Center, and we would love to have you with us. So here it is, Ron. We've talked about the movie. We talked about its significance. We talked about the tree house. But I need to know, and I don't know where you're going with this, so I really am interested in knowing. If someone asked you, should I watch the Swiss Family Robinson on Disney Plus, would you recommend this movie?
If someone's looking for it, I wouldn't say don't watch it. I wouldn't say this is something you have to watch. I mean, we did. My wife had shown it to my daughter not too long ago, and Andy actually loved it. She sat through it. I mean, she sat and
Wow.
played with toys while she was doing it, but she liked it because it really has that draw for it's something kids can understand as an adventure. It's not too far out there. It's not magic that they know is even if they like even if they believe in magic, they doubt it. At a certain point, this is all something adjustable. And I would say, yeah, if you are interested, definitely worth it. But it's not something I will say no. Drop like put this above, watching this next Oscar film. Like, it's no, it's a good, solid film. It definitely could have used an edit, but it's not bad in any way.
Okay. So wait, is that? Tell me again. Is that
It's
yes?
a
You would
watch.
recommend?
Yes, I would recommend it if someone's looking for it. I wouldn't go out of my way to recommend it.
Gotcha. You know what? I'd recommend it only because it feels like it's an important part of Disney history. Again, it's something that Walt touched. It's something that has, again, Tommy Kirk and Kevin Cochran is in it, even though he is a menace in it. He is actually, again, Disney legend. And then also the fact that there's an attraction in the parks about it, I think makes it a significant thing that you would enjoy your trip better. My son did a big thing where he took some of his friends. He's older. He took some of his friends to Disney because he wanted to flex how well he knew the parks, and he made them watch all of these things leading up to it, including this, so that they would know what they were getting into. So I think that it's a big piece of Disney history. It's celebrating 65 years. I would recommend watching it, but I don't disagree with you that it does need some editing. 2 hours and 5 minutes. It probably is about 30 minutes too long. Just putting that out there. And proof is the fact that there is another version on here that is only an hour and a half. So there's that. But I know that this is a big movie for a lot of people, that it was something that either you grew up with, you had the clamshell version, your parents played it all the time, when you got your screen time, whatever. We didn't have screen time. We just watched TV all the time. But if you we would love to get your comments on it. Please leave your comments so that we know. Monorail 425 said that it's the must watch along with 20,000 Leagues. And the books are better but worthwhile. I agree. I would agree. I didn't read the books. I have not read the books. However, 20,000 Leagues is also a movie celebrating an anniversary this year, I believe. So we're gonna probably review that one this year as well. So come back to Deep in the Plus every week. Go to deepintheplus.com. You can see all 200 and almost 250 reviews that we've done. A lot of them with Mr. Rondiana. So thank you for spending your night with me. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. I always love talking old movies.
Awesome. Well, and if you ever want to come back and talk new movies, we can do that too. I'm sure with a 6-year-old, you probably watch a lot of new ones too. If you ever want to come on and talk about, what is it, Puppy? What's the puppy one? The puppy show? I don't know.
Nope.
There's some puppy show. There's a cat show. I know you love talking about Bluey though.
Yeah, the Bluey movie's eventually going to be on here.
Well, we'll definitely get you back in your hoodie for that one. All right, my friend. Thanks a lot. Thank you all for watching. We appreciate you. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.